Welcome to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast, brought to you by Beats on Man Productions.
College High. One of the students, I have no idea who he was, but he was in wood shop, and he took that picture and put it on some masonite, and then and cut them up into puzzle pieces. His picture of College High, and I got every piece but one. It was one. I put it together and had one missing piece. Well, that's pretty good, out of all of those.
Tell you what, later on looking back, it was their parents. I grew up without a dad in the home, but their parents had a huge impact on me.
Cheated to win, and this young man asked why he cheated, to win. And in the course of that conversation, he said he wanted to get the gold. He had to get the gold medal, but he came to the realization that if you're not enough without the gold medal, you're never going to be enough with the gold medal. And I think I love that.
Hey, this is Scott Townsend. Welcome back to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast. And today I have with me fellow Wildcatter Brian Nelson. Brian, how's it going?
Oh, it's going good. How about you today, Scott?
It's doing great. It's good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. This is fun.
Yeah, we haven't probably talked since 82 or college, yeah.
Yeah, I think we saw each other maybe occasionally on campus or something, but
right at Oklahoma State. And I see you have the right sweatshirt on, so that's cool.
Yeah, go Pokes.
Go Pokes. So, like everybody else, tell us what's been going on. Bring us up to speed on the life of Brian for the last 39 years.
Oh yeah. Well, as you know, we're Pokes fans, and so after high school, we both went to Oklahoma State. I graduated from an industrial engineering school.
Oh yeah.
And then after that, started working at Delta Faucet and Schleglock as a kind of a project engineer. Got my MBA from Oklahoma City University.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And so did that when we were in Oklahoma City for, 3.5 years. And then we started having some kids. And then from that point, started doing more project management with lots of aerospace companies.
Oh, that's cool.
20 plus years. And now I'm trying to be less on the road. And so working for Evoqua Water Technologies now and doing.
I was wondering how you said that. I saw the name on your letterhead, the Evoqua. I was trying to, it's Evoqua.
Yeah, it's Evoqua. They're trying to be like some of the other companies, all sexy and come up with some weird name. So that's what they call it. It's the old Siemens Water, from Germany. So it's the basis of the company. So
yeah. So what do you do for them?
I'm a senior project manager.
Okay. Evoqua. So they're into, I guess you guys are into wastewater or?
Yeah, it's process water and then wastewater. So on the process water side, did projects with Intel, which is high purity water. The project that I was working on was with Intel Ireland. And so doing high purity water systems, to basically wash their chips before and after, manufacturing, stuff like that.
Right.
And we worked on the wastewater side with handling the copper waste that's associated with making those chips. So yeah, it's fun dealing with the guys from Ireland. So they're a fun group versus other countries I've dealt with who aren't so fun. So
yeah, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So where are you now? Where are we talking to? Where are you coming from?
I am coming from Colorado Springs, and so we are, as some people would know, we're somewhat proud of. We're called the Olympic City because the Olympics headquarters is based in Colorado Springs, and then
we're at the base.
Yeah. And then we're at the base of Pikes Peak, which is a 14,110 foot peak. that I've actually climbed along with 9 other 14ers in the state of Colorado. So it's,
Well, it'll be.
yeah, it's fun. It's a little thin air though. You get past 12,000 feet, it gets a little thin in the air. So it's,
So
it makes it more.
what was that like?
Well, climbing 14ers it's actually, you know, people can get into trouble depending on what they do, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. So you obviously have to be in somewhat decent physical condition.
Yeah.
Because once you get above 12,000 feet above tree line, then the air gets thin, and especially when you're above 14,000 foot, the air is real thin. So it's more like, you know, even friends that I've taken up that are in phenomenal condition. I'm in good condition, but I'm not in phenomenal condition. And you know, you get above 14,000 feet, you know, it's more like, you know, go 100 yards, take a little break, go 100 yards, take a little break. So
Wow.
yeah, air's thin up there.
Yeah. So do you hike for a hobby? I mean, what does Brian do for fun and recreation? Sounds like you like to hike for one.
Oh yeah, I love hike. I've got a dog that he loves to hike better than I do. So when I'm on the road, he misses me more than anybody else probably. So
Yeah.
but yeah, we go hiking almost every day. You know, we go up in a couple of local areas. There's one about 5 minutes from the house, Blodgett Peak. And so we gain 500, 750 foot a day normally. And then mountain biking on the weekends. And then, you know, obviously it's ski season right now. So do a little skiing and then a little camping during the summer. So, but yeah, it's a great area. I mean, you know, I love Oklahoma. I love the people and the food, but I don't miss the mosquitoes and the humidity. So it's,
yeah, those two are drawbacks for sure.
well, I guess that's probably why we've lived in Colorado or Washington State now for, I don't know, 25 plus years. So
That's what Darla Wendell was talking about. She lives in Utah, I think it was, and
Yeah.
she was talking about the absence of mosquitoes and stuff until she comes back to Oklahoma and then remembers, oh yeah, they have mosquitoes, yeah, and humidity.
Oh yeah, well, I enjoyed that this summer. We went back, and so I've got a mother and mother-in-law and 2 sister-in-laws that live in Stillwater. So we get back to Stillwater normally once a year and stuff, but I try not to time that in summer as much as spring or fall. So
Right. So going back to College High, who were your friends, and do you still stay in touch with any of your?
Yeah. So most people would probably remember Paul Kastner and I were kind of thick thieves at the time, and then also Joe Mekulecki, more from the band side, and then Brian Hopkins more on the evening side of shenanigans and stuff like that.
Paul Kastner, he's in the police work, or?
Yeah, he was a prison warden. So he retired out. So yeah, you got to get him on the show. He's got lots of funny stories. So he'd be a good one to get on the show. So
yeah, I'll have to definitely reach out and see if we can get him on. So Joe Mikulicki and Brian Hopkins.
Yeah. So I've kept up a little bit with Brian and Joe. I caught up with Brian Hopkins of all people, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 4. And he was living someplace in Missouri, you know, and kayaking still and doing all his fun things. And he was always kind of a naturalist. And so if I remember right, he was doing, you know, water items and stuff. So it was fun to catch up with him for a little bit. So
yeah. So what was life like for you growing up in Bartlesville? Did you always live in Bartlesville, or?
No, I mean, Bartlesville was a little bit like Newberry for me. It's you know, I'd always lived in either, you know, like Tulsa, Jacksonville, you know, Knoxville. And so, you know, lived in different areas. So from that standpoint, you know, Bartlesville is pretty small. And so it was a nice town, but I mostly worked. And so from the time, you know, really arrived in Bartlesville, I think I arrived I started going to Central in 8th grade. And so arrived there then, and it really, you know, from that point, mainly worked and then did band, you know, the 2 things I kind of did. But Bartlesville, I guess when I tell people about Bartlesville, I always tell them that the police officers were a little aggressive. So it's kind of funny to me because it's, you know, there's nothing. I was working at H&H at the time, and it was, I don't know what time of night it was, but I was out with a couple of friends, and so from work. And so I had a girlfriend at the time that she went to Sooner, and And so it was kind of funny because it's going through and, we were TPing her house, and stuff. She TP'd my house, so I was returning the favor. So
Right.
So I'm out there, and of course, one of their neighbors called the cops and stuff. And so, they show up, and two of my friends hid in the bushes. I hid underneath, her daddy's car, or no, not car, truck. And so, we see the police pull up, they catch the other two guys in the bushes, and then, they rat me out and say I'm underneath the truck. And so I hear this, click, and then I hear this, boy, you better, roll out from underneath that truck real slowly. And so I put my hands out and I rolled out, and, I raised my hands up, and lo and behold, I was looking at a 38 looking right at me. So it's kind of funny,
Oh my gosh.
TP in a house, that Bartlesville's finest was drawn down on a 17-year-old kid. But
Right.
yeah, that's life in Bartlesville. So
Life in the fast lane.
well, they had to have something to do. So I guess TPing was I think at that time it was $25 a roll of those. So they were all mad because when my girlfriend's parents came out, they're like, oh, Brian, how are you doing? And, and I'm cuffed up and in the back seat and all this other stuff. Oh, I'm doing fine. They wouldn't press charges. So that made them mad because they wouldn't press charges. So
That's so funny.
oh yeah. Well, it's life in the fast lanes in Bartlesville, right?
Yeah. What you said you worked at H&H?
Yeah, I worked at
What's that?
H&H Food Center was the one.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's right across from Overly's Woods.
From where?
From Overly's Woods. So yeah, I worked at the Egberts up on the Highway 75.
Mm-hmm.
I was 14, and then went Kerr McGee and pumped gas for like a year in that area of H&H and Overly's Woods, and then went to H&H and worked there for a couple of years. And then I did my senior year at Overly's Woods because
Okay.
Paul and I were on work. I think they called it work release or whatever else. So we only took 4 credits. The other 2 credits we were working in the afternoon, which was great. And for your senior year, how fun is that to only have to go to school for 4 periods? So
Oh yeah. Did you live on that side of town over there?
yeah, I lived back off there off of 75, back from where that I think Totem was and Egberts was. I lived back in that neighborhood back over there. So
Oh, okay. You told him, man. That's a store I haven't heard about in a long time.
I think that's all gone. I haven't driven through Bartlesville. I don't know. It's been 25 years or something like that. So
What's Micklelucky up to these days?
What's that?
What's Micklelucky up to these days?
I talked to Joe during Christmas. So he's been working for a A&E firm, the engineering firm up in Illinois now for quite a while. I think for almost his whole career, like 30 plus years. So he's getting ready to retire. So him and Dorothy, they're I think they're going to retire to Knoxville, if I remember right. So so he's closing in. So I think they're going to build a house and he's closing in on retirement. And I'm hoping to follow him here in a couple of years. So I'm working for benefits, as I like to tell my crew. So, so don't make me mad. Otherwise, you may not see me pretty soon. So. The dog would be happy. So, all right, you're here full time. So.
Have you been to any of the reunions up to this point?
No, I wish I had. A lot of the times, I think they reached me for was it the 20-year? I think reunion. Somebody reached out, and we were living in Spokane, Washington, and somebody found me, and they got my information. I think for the reunion booklet, but I couldn't make it because we were going on vacation up to Banff, and so I couldn't make it because it was corresponding with that vacation. So
right.
Yeah, I don't know. Have they set a date for the 40th?
Yeah. So I just saw Kathy Clear. Was Kathy Phillips this last weekend. A bunch of us met for lunch.
Nice.
She was talking about when is it? September 20. I can't remember now. I'll have to look it up. But September 26th, something like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
it was earlier
I'll try to make it. So.
It was earlier in the month, and then they had to change it up, and so I think it's 20 something. I don't know.
That'd be fun. So.
Yeah. And it's on the Facebook, though. The Col-Hi Wildcats Facebook page. They have a she wrote a note about that, so you might
Nice.
join that page if you're not already joined up with it, and then
Yeah, I'll have to do that.
yeah.
That'd be
And-
fun. So
Plus we'll try to keep people informed through this podcast as well.
oh, that's great. Like I
As
said,
best we
it's great
can.
doing this. It's fun. So,
So yeah, you need to go to the 40th.
I do. So I've still got a brother that lives part-time in Tulsa, so maybe I can make it a combined trip. So
Thank you for listening to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast, and we'll be right back after this.
If you've enjoyed this podcast in 2021, you have my patrons to thank for that. A bunch of Wildcats got together and created a GoFundMe account to help in the production of this podcast. So with that in mind, I've started a Patreon page so that listeners can help support the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast on a month-to-month basis. So please check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/Wildcats 1982. And now back to the show. So what's been one of your biggest accomplishments over the last 39 years?
well, I've been very fortunate, so I feel very blessed. So I was, good enough to get married to a kind and pretty Oklahoma girl at Laurie Bervin. She was from the other side.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So she was had the enjoyment of being the first graduating class of Beeville, which I don't think anybody was too excited about that. But
Right.
and so she's a teacher, and she's got a big heart. And like I said, we were married for about 5 years, and we've got 3 sons. I've got Matthew, who's 30, and he's a hugger. He's an arborist, and Jeremy, 27, and he's kind of a business guy and does a lot of work with young children, mountain biking and things. And then I got
That's
Cody.
cool.
Cody's learning to be an electrician, and he's 23. So all the boys are Eagle Scouts, which I think my wife and I are really proud of. And had a series of drama because not everybody wants to be an Eagle Scout these days. This is before all the sexual harassment and all the other things came up. But
Yeah.
my wife, she enjoys being the queen of the house, and even our dog is the boy. So she's definitely the queen of the house. And I guess the other accomplishment would be, I was lucky enough that made decent enough money to where she could stay at home with the boys, that whole time. And so, until they went into grade school and stuff. And so it's, as most people know, it's hard to do that these days. And so I guess I'm happy with that. And
That's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife was able to do that, and it's probably one of the best
congrats.
decisions. Yeah.
That just gives them a great foundation, and so it's
Right.
you can do that and, get them into college and stuff like that, or into a professional trade, you feel like you've done your job by the kids. So.
Yeah. I interviewed Ken Rusk. He hang on a second. He's got a book out called Blue Collar Cash.
Nice.
I interviewed him on the other podcast that I have, and
How fun.
he's all about trades, and he talks a lot about, he said your son's an electrician or learning to be one. There are no electricians anymore. I mean, people don't know how to do the carpentry, plumbing, welding. All these things are just kind of going.
Exactly.
We haven't lost all of them yet, but there's such a huge need for them, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
They can make all the money they want,
Exactly. They can make good figures. I've dealt with, a lot of my project management work has been constructing factories and doing things like that. So I'm working with the trades all the time. And so a lot of these trades, it's not unusual, to be making 100,000 plus. So it's, it's on how many hours you want to work. So it's
Right. What's been one of your biggest challenges over the last 39 years? What was one of the
it seems like it's always time. So there's never enough time between my professional life and my personal life. And with all the travel that I've done kind of across the world, it's been challenging at times. I was working on one project where I had project teams and two different project teams in two different areas of Germany, and then in the UK, and then two different project teams in Florida and Tampa, Florida, and then Phoenix, Arizona, and then teams over in India. And so, there was nothing like waking up on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5:30 a.m. to start my day to, with the teams and over in India and over in, Germany and stuff. So it's been a challenge with that, but, once I'm retired, I think it'll be a lot easier to manage, on the time side.
So how did you manage that?
It was tough. That was 2.5 years. And so I was every other week, either in India, Germany, or traveling in the States. And so that was a challenge. So that wasn't fun times. So.
A lot of frequent flyer miles.
Oh yeah. Me and United, we're best friends still. So.
Wow.
But it comes with upside. I mean, so like I said, my wife still is if you travel, then I travel. And so she and I have been to New Zealand, we've been to Japan, Thailand. So, we've been a lot of places in the world, and especially all over Europe, extensively in France, Germany, the UK. And so, it comes with some upside, and we've been able to take the boys on, trips to Hawaii, and trips, over to the UK and stuff.
Right.
Germany. So it's been fun. So there's a lot of upside. And, the fun thing is, I've made friends all over the world. So like I said, I feel very blessed. So it's been good work to do, but it's been time consuming.
Right. So if you woke up at 5:30, when did you shut it down?
Well, woke up at 5:30 a.m. and then typically those days would go until Phoenix, until the day was done with Phoenix. So it'd be 6 p.m. depending on the day, because our headquarters was in Phoenix. So I'd have to take calls all the way through. But, there's nothing like being over in Bangalore and getting a call at 2 a.m. in the morning. It's my dentist calling me saying, "Hey, you've got an appointment on Friday." And I'm like, okay. Oh, you sound really tired, Brian. Well, I'm over in Bangalore and it's 2 a.m. my time. So yeah, I am. So that's just that. So.
What are some of the, you told the toilet paper story. Any other funny stories from high school, your senior year specifically?
No, I think the toilet paper was my junior year. So I don't remember anything all that exciting happening in my senior year. We used to I can't remember that go-kart track that was over there, but a lot of times we go over that go-kart track and be a little rambunctious over there and knock each other off the track and get close to getting thrown off the track and all this other stuff. So Kasner and Hopkins and I, the three of us would get together. It was I'm surprised we never got arrested. So it was a good thing. So.
That's so funny. Do you remember what was your favorite class in high school?
I really enjoyed band. So, I mean, band was fun. And, I think even then it wasn't really cool. And certainly these days, I think it's probably less cool. All my sons because my wife, Laurie, she was in the band. She played a flute. Obviously I played the trumpet and baritone. And so we expected our kids to at least try band. And so it really never took with any of them. My oldest son, that was a terror. He was playing the trombone. There was I'd always want him to practice before I got home, but sometimes it wouldn't work that way. So, but band really never took off with any of the kids. But I guess I really enjoyed it because of all the fun things we did. So making a lot of friends. And then, we went on trips to Huntington Beach and then to St. Louis for the band trips. And they were just a hoot, but it was, getting up and marching and things like that. And the stinky shoes from marching in the wet grass there in Oklahoma and stuff. And so, but a lot of really fun memories. And, Mr. French was really a great guy. So I really liked him as probably my favorite teacher there at Col-Hi.
Oh, okay.
And then my most unfavorite teacher was in German. So unfortunately, Paul and I had taken that class together, and that wasn't probably a good idea. I can't remember her name, but she told me she'd give me a B if I wouldn't take German too. And I told her that was a deal. So
if you wouldn't take German too?
Yeah, if I wouldn't take, well, she kind of set herself up for disaster there a little bit. I mean, those gummy bears they used to sell and all this other stuff. So there's people throwing gummy bears and people throwing things during the movie and stuff. So there's a lot of shenanigans going on that she probably didn't have a lot of classroom management, as my wife would tell you. She's a grade school teacher. She teaches first grade. So classroom management wouldn't be her strongest suit. So
yeah, that's one question I haven't asked. I need to start asking that. What was your least favorite teacher? Who was your least favorite teacher?
Yeah, that would probably be her. Other than, I only got one B in mathematics, and that was from what was it, Gaylord, right?
Mr. Gay.
Yeah, that's the only B I got. And so, and did really well in science and math. I guess that's why I became an engineer. But yeah, I got a B in geometry of all things, and kind of torqued me off. So, but that's life.
Wow, you did a whole lot better than I did. I'll tell you that.
Well, like
I wish I got to be.
Well, I don't know that class. It didn't make as much sense as the other mathematics classes. So it's.
That's so funny. Let me read through my questions here real quick. I'll cut this part out.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it was fun to listen to some of the other ones. I listened to Kurt and Darla, and then who else? I listened to one more. So I'm trying to remember who else, but I listened to another one. So it was fun to listen to them. So it's what everybody's life has turned out to be. So
what? Let's see. Okay, here's the other one. Looking back on 1982, what was the song or the album that takes you back to 1982 every time you hear it?
Oh, I listened to a lot of Cars at that time, so it's yeah, I drove that old Datsun B210, so it's it was, I think it was an $1,800 car, and I put $300 worth of stereo in it and stuff. So it's like all the other youngsters at the time. But yeah, the Cars is mine. But Journey. I mean, there's all of the the ones 38 Special that we used to listen to. So it's the Cars.
What was the song they sang?
I liked Round and Round was the song that I liked the most. So it's
Round and Round.
But they my best friend's girlfriend, they had a lot of them. They were classic hits that kind of carried on into college. So
right. Round and Round. I have to look that one up. I can almost hear it.
Yeah, that's right. You have to pull out those CDs. Or now today's you can just pull it up on your computer. Back then you had to do your mixtapes and all the other stuff. So it's funny. I was telling my kids I was in Germany going through a museum, and I took a photo of rotary phones and different things like that. And that was a big hoot to them. How times have changed, and my calculator and all the other stuff that I used to use and stuff. So it's
the phone with the really long cord on it.
Well, that's right. Everybody had to stretch that someplace where your parents couldn't hear you. Ours was in the kitchen, so I could get out to the garage. And so that was always fun. They didn't want to hear it, and I didn't want them to hear it either. So those phone cords, I think they go 20 foot or something. So.
Or 50. I think we had one, and then it got all tangled up when you tried to put the phone back on the.
Oh, I know.
And then the cord would all tangle up, and yeah.
Well, those are funny times, all the things that we thought were really important. Because I'd be working, and then the girlfriend at the time, she'd be all upset that we didn't go out on a date or something like that. So I'd be trying to, calm her down, and it'd be midnight, and I'm like, I got to go back to work at 7 a.m. So we need to wrap this up. So I understand this is important, but I got to sleep too. So.
Oh man, do you remember your phone number growing up in Bartlesville?
I don't. I remember a lot of phone numbers. I'm pretty good with numbers. I can still remember some addresses, but I can remember when we lived on Wayside Drive, and so we were way down there by it. I can't remember the grade school name, but we were like 3 houses off the grade school. So but yeah, I can't remember a phone number. So
yeah, I can remember we grew up in Waco, Texas, until the 3rd grade, and then we moved to Bartlesville.
Nice.
But I still remember the phone number from, golly, I was in the 2nd grade,
Good for you.
772-5574. I'm not sure the area code, but
Yeah, 918. I can remember the area code. So
well, the
918.
area code for Waco. I can't
Oh,
remember the
Waco.
area code
Gotcha,
for Waco.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, Waco's a nice town. We just went there for fall break. Saw my brother. He lives in Salado, Texas, so we were down there. So.
You go to Magnolia Cafe and all that stuff.
Of course. You know,
Yeah.
went and had my cookie. So.
So Brian Nelson is graduating. He's 18 years old, and you're at his graduation, and he, he's walking across the graduation platform there, 18 years old. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Well, you know, I'd probably say work less and travel more, you know, have more adventures. So that's, you know, like I was saying earlier, you know, really been blessed that been able to travel the world, and you see a lot of things that are grand. You know, there's great museums and architecture and great food, and you see some things that aren't so grand. You know, there's, you know, in particular like India and stuff like that, Mexico. You know, it makes you, when you come back home, you think, you know, we're very lucky to live in the country that we live in, because we've got so many things and so many good things about our country. I think people tend to focus a little bit on the negative, but when you go and travel the world, you'll figure out that the United States is pretty doggone good. So,
what's one of the best places you've been? I mean, what one place is your Hall of Fame for best places to visit?
Nah, that's a good question. If it's a city, it's probably Paris is my favorite, and if it's a country, it's probably New Zealand. New Zealand's it's got everything that you can do. So you can hike, you can bike, you can kayak in the ocean. You know, you can see things that, you know, that you've just never seen. That's where all the Lord of the Rings was filmed and things like that. So yeah, I mean, like Auckland, it's a big city, but you go to Nelson and Wellington, you know, they're just phenomenal, you know, and Hamilton was really good. And funny enough, my wife always has to put her little handprint on the trip. So because I'm as a project manager, I do a lot of organizing and planning. So I plan all the trips. Like I said, she's got to put her little handprint. So we were in the city of Hamilton, and she, you know, she goes, oh, you know, I want to go see, you know, where they do, you call it Hobbiton. And I'm like, where's that? And she goes, well, I don't know. You're going to figure it out, aren't you? And I was like, sounds like I am. So funny enough, you know, we were staying at this hotel and talked to the gal, and she's like, do you have reservations? And I'm like, no reservations. She goes, well, honey, I'll call in the morning. And she said, we'll get you in. So, but yeah, just phenomenally nice people, you know, because you drive on the opposite side of the road, and, you know, we were over there for 2 weeks and no one's honking at me or doing anything. And kind of the same thing as Ireland. Ireland's a really nice place to go with just really nice people, where if you look lost on the street, I mean, literally they'll stop and, now where are you trying to go? You know, and they'll give you directions. They'll actually go out of their way and walk you around. Oh, this is where you need to go, and go down to the end of this street. But they're just phenomenally nice people, you know.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
The worst place?
Bangalore. Yeah, India. It's tough. It's tough to be there because of the time change. You're 12 and a half hours difference in the United States, and just absolute poverty that you see. I mean, got impatient, and the driver, you know, from our hotel to take us to the plant was running late. So I finally took Greg Spencer, one of the guys I was working with, and I was like, hey, I'm walking, you know, and I said, you can stay here and wait for the taxi, but I got to make a meeting. And so we're walking along, and he's, you know, he's just absolutely fascinated, because when you're walking through town, I mean, when you go in a car ride, it's one thing to go from A to B, but when you walk through town and you see three-legged dogs, you see dead rats, you see people, you know, begging and all this other stuff, and you see that all in 20 minutes of a walk to go from A to B. You know, he was taking pictures, and it's kind of what I said earlier. He was taking pictures to send to his girls and saying, you know, you really don't know how lucky you got it, you know, and obviously they don't really have traffic lanes there, and the traffic's a mess, and everybody's honking their horns. And so it's a tough place to be. You know, I thought Mexico was bad, did a lot of travels down to our plants down in Mexico that I was working at. But yeah, I mean, India was, or Bangalore in particular, it was kind of a new, okay, I'm really, really lucky. So I'd literally fly back into Germany and be kissing the ground because I'm like, all right.
Please don't make me go back there again.
Well, it was my last 3 trips over there. I got, because, you know, companies are always trying to save money, and a business class fare versus the economy fare is a big difference. And my last 3 trips, I just told my boss, I'm not going unless it's business class, because it's just, it's a mean journey. I mean, literally you leave Colorado Springs at 8 o'clock in the morning, arrive Chicago, get into Chicago. It's 8-hour flight from Chicago to Frankfurt. And then it's another 8.5, 9-hour flight to go from to Frankfurt to Bangalore. And so you arrive at 2:30 a.m. in the morning, and, you know, and that's on Monday morning when you left Saturday, you know, and so you walk out and it's just a throng of people and stuff. So it's easier said than done. So needless to say, my visa has expired and I don't plan to go back. So,
you know, I'm gonna ask this question for a totally different reason.
Sure.
On my other podcast, my brother and I are talking about meetings and talking about virtual meetings and things like that. In a situation like that, I'm not questioning that you went to Bangalore. I'm wondering, can trips like that be done virtually through Zoom or a conference call rather than physically being there? Or is the need to be physically there, you know, you've got to actually lay eyes on something? But
yeah, I would say it's both. I mean, so with my teams, and I'm kind of old school, you know, if you can't develop a relationship to me over the phone or the computer. And so from my standpoint, and so, you know, so a lot of times when we were going over, we would go over and meet the various teams. So I was working at a company that had several, you know, strategic business units over there. And so I was dealing with the different, you know, segments of the airplane. One was cargo, one was, you know, aircraft lighting, you know, one was seats. And so dealing with these different groups. So whenever we went over there, we went and met with the groups. And so I bring my project team from the United States over to meet their team. And then correspondingly, you know, then the India team would come over to the United States and meet a more extensive team in the United States. And I did that selfishly because it leads to better results. When you have those face-to-face interactions, when you've had dinner together, when you've spent time together, then
shake hands.
Then you can do lots of Zoom meetings and you can do things,
right?
Because you've got the foundation of a relationship. But you can't, you know, I still keep up with my friends in Germany or Bangalore, or, you know, wherever, in Thailand, you know, Bangkok. But you know, it's because we had that face-to-face time and we spent, you know, a week together. And so they got to know me and I got to know them. And like I said, I still keep up with all these cats, and it's a lot of fun because, I mean, these projects were 20 years ago or whatever else. And
wow,
we still stay together. So if I'm in the area, I mean, I go see my friends in Germany. I mean, they've driven from Germany over to Amsterdam, and you know, we'll spend a weekend together and stuff. And so that's been a blast. And so to see and have good project teams. But I know a lot of people think that, you know, okay, well, I can do this, and as long as I Zoom with people and keep a track of milestones and actions and stuff like that, that's a real relationship. But I guess, like I said, I'm old school. I just think it's better face to face.
Right. I would agree.
I think my generation's dying out. So, well, for companies, it's very expensive. I mean, those trips over to India or to Germany or wherever else I was going in the world, and they're expensive trips, you know. So I mean,
you know, and I think you know, if you can at least what do I know, if you can at least get one good face-to-face meeting, you know, it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of money to get over there, but you meet people, shake their hands, go out to dinner, blah blah blah, and all that stuff, and then then you have the relationship, like you said, the baseline. So now when you want to do a phone call or a Zoom meeting or teleconference, whatever, you know each other, so to speak. It's a little easier. I guess.
It
Once you
is. Well,
have-
I call it putting cookies in the jar and taking cookies out of the jar. So when I go over and meet with my project team, I try to outline, what the project's going to be. Here's the scope. Here's some guidelines I'd like us to follow. And of course, then we socialize. We do things in the evening time and we have dinner. And I always try to go out and do some other activity that's local to the area. And it gives us that foundation. And then from a project manager standpoint, I'm no different than anybody else. I've got to drive for results. And so it's really tough to drive for results if you don't have any cookies in that jar. So
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Well, any last words, to the Wildcats that are listening, watching? What would you like to say?
I'd like to say, I hope I can see you guys for the 40th there in September, and go Wildcats.
There you go. Well, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how would they do that? What's the best way?
Best way would be is by my Gmail account, and that's Brian, BRIAN, D as in dog, Nelson, NELSON 5440@gmail.com.
Cool. I'll put that down below and then make sure it's in the show notes too. For anybody that wants to get in touch with you and follow up with a conversation or so.
That'd be great.
Well, Brian, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for making the time to visit with us, and it's good to get back in touch.
Yeah, it's great. So, like I said, thanks for doing this. I think it's a real hoot, and especially coming up on the 40th, allows everybody to have a little foundation of what's been going on.
Exactly. All right. Well, I guess that's about it for Brian Nelson. This is Scott Townsend. Thanks for watching, listening to the last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
The Last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 podcast is a Diesel Man production. Visit the Last of the Col-Hi Wildcats 1982 YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
This podcast is made possible by our Patreon members, Butch Bolin, Ben Townsend, Mark Thompson, Sandra Yeager, and Christy Brooks. And by the generous donations made via the GoFundMe campaign.